Testing, testing. Is it working?
No.
It is now. Oh, excellent. I did start on time despite my mic not working. I call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order at 4:30 on June 19th, 2024 in the City Council chambers in Orem, Utah. And we will begin with an invocation by Mike.
Our Father in heaven, we come before you today as a planning commission. We invite thy spirit to dwell with us that we might be mindful and make choices that are conducive to the well-being of this city and the residents that live here. Please help us to be thoughtful and understand the issues and make good decisions. These things we pray for humbly in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. We will begin with item 3.1, which is a public hearing to amend Article 22-5-3A and the zoning map of the city of Orem by rezoning the property located generally at 1230 West, 2000 South from the OS5 zone to the C2 zone. It's approximately 9.43 acres. We'll begin with a presentation from the city.
So the applicant is requesting approval to build a commercial development that will be in the corner of the new Lakeview Parkway and 2000 South in the southwest corner of Orem. And in February of 2022, they submitted their initial application, but they were asked to wait till the details of the Lakeview Parkway were completed and further along in the design stages. So those plans have now been established and he is moving forward with his reason. So, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that one sounds on.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
That's okay. Okay, I hear it now. Mr. Dunn, this is going to, we were at the location, you can see here at 2000 South and Lakeview Parkway. There are no roads currently. Mr. Dunn is proposing to build a multi-unit commercial complex with three buildings closer to the southwest corner of the property and closer to the intersection. He is proposing to build a C-store with a fueling station. And the general plan designation for this property is
community commercial. So the C2 zone will not require any amendments to the general plan. This shows what it is currently zoned as OS5, which is generally a holding zone until the property is developed. This shows what the proposed zoning would be as C2. This shows the general plan designation of community commercial for this property. And this is, you can see the Lakeview Parkway location. It's that dirt road to the south coming in from Provo to the west of their property. These are a few more slides of that. You can see that 2000 South is in orange on the slide to the left, and that the new Lakeview Parkway in Provo is red. And as it gets into Orem, it's the blue designation. Geneva Road is the green. So Geneva Road will head east and Lakeview Parkway will tie into the existing Geneva Road. This shows the Dunn property on next in conjunction with the Lakeview Parkway. And these are the elevations showing what they're proposing to build for the 3 buildings. And this is as much of a street view as you can get when there's no street. Any questions for me on this?
Yeah, so the residents, it's next to a residential area.
Correct.
Would those residents who purchased homes in that area been aware that since their plan didn't come, were they aware that there's a commercial use of that property? You know, how does that work?
That general plan designation is not new. It's been that way for years. So if they had asked, they would have known.
So OS5 or OSS, whatever that was.
OS5, but the general plan designation of community commercial has been that way for years,
Okay.
since it was annexed, I believe.
And on the other side of Lakeview Parkway, that's not Orem, right? That's county land or?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm going to ask kind of a simple question, but where is the community, like where is the general plan and where can people see that?
You can see, I believe you can see it online at orem.org/maps, and then you go to where I live and click on I want to, and you can open those zoning layers. And I believe the general plan is in there, right?
It's also at orem.org/general plan.
Even more direct.
That is more direct. It seems like it's kind of buried down. I mean, like even as planning commissioners, I wouldn't know where to go to find that. And we've had questions. I know I've had questions from other commissioners too about like, where do we find what the vision is for this part of Orem? So that would be where we would go.
Right.
What are the height restrictions in the C2 zone in that particular area?
So when it's next to residential, within the first 100 feet, max is 35 feet. And then as you get away from 100 feet away from those residential property lines, it can go up to 48 feet max. These buildings are 31 feet.
Okay.
So they will be 31 feet from the property line.
So with the planned construction of 3 buildings, do we have any ideas to the parking requirements for this?
So if it would have to be 1 spot for every 250 square feet of leasable space. And that will all come through with the site plan, and they'll have to show their traffic flow and all that on the site plan.
Is across the street part of Orem, or is that an annexed land, or what is it going to be designated?
I believe to the west is Utah County, and to the south is Provo.
It is currently Utah County. It is in the declaration of annexation in Orem, but that's also in perpetuity going to be open space. That's part of the Cherry Hill Farm designation. So that directly across the street would not be developed unless such time as they bought back their development rights, but they were given to the Conservancy District. So everything to the west will not be developed, but everything on Provo side to the south will be developed into Provo or in Provo.
Is there an indication what what Provo is going to develop on their side?
Ryan may have some more detail.
Yeah, I actually just looked up their zoning map just to refresh my memory. It's zoned as an SDP 5 Broadway View Specific Development Plan Overlay Zone. And if you read the description on that, it's a village commercial center, which may include residential mixed use, retail, office, and service uses in a village setting. And
So
it's a fairly large area that goes all the way down into Provo. Probably it extends from 2000 North Provo to 1280 North Provo along the Lakeview Parkway.
So basically another large commercial mixed use area.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many acres? Do you have any idea? I mean, this is 9.43. But just relative to this property in question, is it
It's
double the size?
Probably hundreds, I would,
It's
I'm
what?
guessing. It's well over
Hundreds of acres.
100
Oh, is it really?
easily, I'm
Do we have any
guessing.
idea when that Lakeview Parkway Road is to be constructed?
Where or when?
When?
So Provo is working on doing the utilities for their portion. And then our portion of Lakeview Parkway, it's in the process of we're negotiating right away and working with owners right now, hoping to bid that out in the late summer, fall, probably. The goal was July to get that bid out, but it's moving slowly, so we're kind of following the timeline of UDOT and their project to the north. And then Provo is also trying to match that same timeline with theirs project. So all three different projects working.
So we're talking, by the time it's completed, probably what, 2 years, something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any additional questions for staff at this point?
To the north of the property in Orem, what's the, because I know this is just kind of what's happening to the north between that and the stuff it's light industrial to the north. Is that what that is?
Correct. North of the residential.
And north of that is a kind of a community commercial as well. So it'll be a kind of an office commercial space as well, north of that M1.
How far south is that of the property we visited today?
It's just south of that.
Just south of that.
Well, a little bit south, probably mile,
Okay.
or half mile, about a quarter mile. If you can go back to the road plan, Cheryl. So you can,
This one?
that one, where the blue intersects the green, that field there, that's the commercial portion. And then as you go south, as it touches into that residential housetops, you can see there, that's where the industrial is going to be. So that whole corner is going to be industrial commercial. And then they got the residential tucked in there over against.
And is it residential condominiums? Are they apartments? Are they single family homes? Or are they a combination?
It's a combination. Yep. It's a mixed use development.
How old is that development at this point?
That was the initial project that came in with the annexation. They're the ones that put in all the infrastructure and things. So it was 2015 when it was annexed, and it's been built over the last 5+ years. So I think they've either completed their last phase or they're finishing their last phase.
Thank you. Okay, any further questions for staff at this time? Okay, is the applicant here? Would you like to come forward?
Does this work now? Great. My name is Paul Washburn. I'm representing Dunn Investments today. They are the owners of the property. Initially, we came forward with an application just a little over 2 years ago. At that time, we had been told that UDOT and Orem City and Mountain Lands and all the other associated groups were ready to move forward. Had a neighborhood meeting at that time, and then city asked us to hold off until the actual construction got closer. We've been contacted by UDOT and the other, Orem City is a portion of it, and Provo City. We were contacted by them a few months ago and said, we probably need to get this ground planned so infrastructure can be put in the proper places. Once this road is built, they're not going to let us cut into it for a number of years. At any rate, I think the master plan on this was put in a little over 12 years ago. And when the roadway was planned initially by Mountain Lands and then UDOT, they knew this was going to be a busy street, hopefully capturing most of the traffic off of Geneva Road that is going to the south, and probably a lot more as those areas have really grown since then. And it was designated to be a shopping or a commercial district. We had a neighborhood meeting, our second neighborhood meeting, actually. We did one 2 years ago, and then we had one just a few weeks ago. Sent out 178 invitations, I believe. Did not have much of a turnout. I think it was about 21, 22 people as we counted. Probably had about that many phone calls as well. And most of that was what's changed since last time, and nothing's changed. And that's kind of the end of the discussion. During the neighborhood meeting, we actually went and got a copy of the standard land use categories. We read through every category that could possibly be put on this property to the residents that were there. They seem to have concerns over two uses. One is an automotive repair shop, mechanical, rebuilding a motor, whatever, heavy repair. And the other was a car lot. And I've spoken with the owners of the property, and they're very willing to enter into a development agreement prohibiting those two uses from the site. They don't want them there either, but we need to do a development agreement to prohibit another user 20 years from now. We could be happy to do that. I believe that this is going to be a fairly light commercial. The site is fairly small. We're less than 10 acres. It's, I think, mostly going to be things that feed a neighborhood more than anything else. And our intent now to get the zoning in place and get a concept plan in place is, again, so we know where the utilities go, how to move forward. I have been working with UDOT on this property and also on properties to the north. Our understanding is subject to their getting the properties tied up, they will begin doing underground work late this fall, and they're hoping to put asphalt down sometime in the spring, but that changes at the drop of a hat. So that's the best information we've got. Yeah, I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. When do you suspect to break ground? I mean, what's your projection like? Are you trying to hope next year, start building on the property?
Our biggest concern right now is getting infrastructure in place.
Absolutely.
There's some storm drain lines that go through the property that need to be rerouted. Want to get that done. I don't think there's going to be any development until those roads are finished. Once that comes into place, right now I think it takes 2 to 4 months to get a site plan approved through the city. That obviously will come back to Planning Commission. My best guess is you'll probably see construction on this side. It could happen maybe late next fall, but more than likely not this, at least another summer away, or maybe even further.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
And what, do you know what kind of barrier there would be between this site and the surrounding neighborhood?
Yeah, the city ordinance requires a masonry wall between us and the other houses that are there. So it'd be a masonry wall, there'd be a setback, at least the height of the buildings in addition to that, minimum of 20. I think our site plan that we turned in, the conceptual site plan, had at least 30-foot setbacks from the neighborhood. Obviously, all the lighting will have to be configured so it doesn't bleed into the neighborhood. All the protections that the ordinance already offers.
Finally, any additional thoughts on the types of businesses besides when you say that are conducive to the neighborhood? Wouldn't those businesses more serve kind of all the traffic flow that flows along Lakeview Parkway, or what would be some examples?
If I were to guess right now, I would think that you likely could have a restaurant of some sort. I think it would be an attractive spot for maybe a fast food restaurant. I think it's way too early for a gas station, but that could happen. Maverick seems to think you can put one in any corner anywhere and it'll be busy. That wasn't the case a few years ago, but I think we're maybe starting to exhaust that need. I think the other thing would be things, maybe localized businesses, maybe a plumber's office warehouse combination, those kind of things, something that would service, an immediate area. And the other wild cards out there with the airport expanding the way it is, this would be a likely place for a business that had some orientation to the airport to locate.
Any other questions for the applicant?
So you don't have any firm plans?
No,
You've
we
just-
don't have it until the property has been rezoned and we know exactly where the road is, where the utilities are. No, we're not trying to market it at this point. All we can do is offer empty promises. This is our best guess. And I would tell you, I'm probably 98% sure this is pretty close to what will get built. But again, it's time schedule. Years ago, I developed the old UDOT property on 8th North where Wingco is. And we drew a concept plan, and you'd think with 8th North, as busy it was, it would just take off 100 miles an hour. It actually took us about 12 years to fill the site, and it pretty much matched what we anticipated, but I can't tell you that we had a single tenant at that point going into it that we knew was going to be there. We guessed we'd get a McDonald's, and we actually did, but that was probably the only one we knew for sure.
Just out of curiosity, because it shows a convenience store and fuel pumps on the site, you said that the residents had indicated that they didn't want mechanic or car wash? I'm just trying to clarify if that's
Okay.
what.
My
why I wasn't sure
understanding
if it was
from the
car wash.
meeting was that they were concerned about having mechanics, cars would be parked overnight and that, and we don't want that as well. The other one was a car lot.
Okay.
Car sales.
We've got a lot of car washes, so I hear that and
It's hard to look into the future, but gosh, we got a lot of car washes.
we got a lot of car washes.
They and Mavericks have kind of overtaken the world. I don't know that there's enough traffic counts in that area, and typically they like to have houses within a 360-degree direction around the site. And as Jason pointed out, that's all in a permanent open space easement with the state of Utah. So I can't say never, but I can't believe it had happened. That makes sense.
Okay.
So what were the objections the neighbors had to what you discussed at that meeting? What were their concerns?
The two that seemed to be expressed to me that I understood was they wanted to know what the setbacks were going to be. We explained those. Wanted to make sure that lighting didn't bleed into their property, and that won't happen. Want to know what kind of fencing would be between us, and it's a masonry fence as prescribed by the code. They didn't want the mechanics, and they were concerned about having a car lot there, and that
Right.
mostly what I got out of the meeting.
Were they supportive of what you presented to them?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I present the meeting and I try and tell people exactly what's there. I don't take a vote. I think in the neighborhood meeting, our job is to establish what's happening. It's not a sales job. It's try and explain what is going to happen on the site. I think if there were a lot of concerns, I think we'd have a lot more people here tonight. But again, like I say, we sent out 178 notices, and that was the second time we'd had a neighborhood meeting.
So it's estimated this Lakeview Parkway will offload Geneva Road considerably. You commented about that earlier.
I think going to the south, it will. Obviously, it's going to add more traffic going to the north, no doubt about it.
Now, why would that be?
Because you're going to be picking up that whole section of Provo that's west of Geneva Road, and that would be their most likely filter. Fortunately, people still want to shop in Orem, thank goodness, because that subsidizes our taxes very well, and I think that will continue to be the case.
Any idea regarding the projected traffic levels on that Lakeview Parkway once it's constructed?
We don't have those numbers until it's actually built and they're able to do counts and look at the traffic. So we don't have that
But
data.
when they planned this, they must have had some idea in mind as to how much traffic that would take off the Geneva Road, I would think.
Yeah, you'll have the similar traffic flows on Geneva, and I don't know what those are, but it'll definitely increase. You'll have a lot more traffic down to the airport,
And it appears as though there's a lot of development potential
yeah,
on the Provo side, more than the Orem side.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Maybe it's like UTA, they just figure the more you put, the more people will ride, and then they don't.
That's true.
Okay. Any further questions for the applicant at this time?
I'm just not sure why you're going for a C2 zone when you're surrounded in residential. Why it should be more like a C3.
I guess the response to that, it's a small site. The nice thing about C2, there's a variety of uses. The site itself is small enough, you're not going to get a Walmart there. I mean, the big overwhelming uses aren't going to exist on that site. It's going to be generally smaller businesses, and having a variety of things that can go there is helpful.
Yeah, I just see that if you could put almost anything there, put it forward towards the road, and then you've got your easements next to the residential. And so you go up as high as you want and as thick as you want, as long as you keep the 100 feet.
I don't know this is a site that's going to go very high. As we've looked at it, 36 feet seemed to be kind of the top end of what we would be able to do. Obviously, as you go up, you have to come back in, and that shrinks the size of the site significantly. I think we lost a little over 1.25 acres just doing the 35-foot setback. So I think in terms of going high, it's pretty self-limiting. The actual site itself is going to limit the amount of development that can happen there.
Thank you. If we have any further questions, well, I do have one question. What is the distance between here and the Holiday Oil to the east, or the proposed Holiday Oil to the east? Quarter mile, half mile?
I can measure it. I'll get back to you.
So this is the one in green, and then the Holiday Oil is the red.
The
to
red,
To
yeah.
the east.
Yeah.
So
What is that? I don't have a scale, so I can't.
I don't know in feet how far that is.
I'm looking.
We're vamping for Ryan, so
Oh,
he can
okay.
give us the answer.
He says it's about 2,000 feet.
4/10, yeah. About half a mile. Okay, some things to think about. We ready to go to the public hearing then? Anyone else? Okay. Then I'm going to open up this meeting for the public hearing. If you could come to the mic and state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. And I will go ahead and open that for whoever would like to come forward. Thank you for being brave.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris. And if we look at the one with the red box outline, my husband and I live, not the houses that border that red line, but we're just perpendicular, that first house. And so when we moved in 3 years ago, it was brand new. We knew that there would be, property development there. I guess just a couple points I want to make. We attended a similar meeting like this. I think it was with the city council. And it was in relation to Holiday Oil, is that it, going in? And just my observation as a relatively new resident of Orem, it seems like several people came up here and were crying and sobbing and pleading with the city council to not let Holiday Oil go in there. And next thing we know, it's going in. So I came knowing that it probably doesn't matter what we say or do or want. We understand that it's, Mr. Dunn's property. But we would, I think probably speaking for a lot of people, if we could avoid another gas station, that would probably not be a bad thing. We've got one up Geneva University Parkway, doesn't really impact us, but now to have, 2 of them like within a half a mile right there with all the residential property. If you have any, influence to not let that happen, that would be appreciated. The second thing I want to ask is probably unrelated, but you're an audience that maybe I could run this by. Again, if you could see where our house is, and so My husband Jim and I, we are going to back up to Lakeview Park. Am I over 3 minutes? Okay, I'll speed it up. I know there's a
You're
big
good.
crowd
You still have about a
coming up
minute and a
here
half.
behind me,
You're
so-
good.
So we knew going in, but we didn't know that they were going to come into our property 3 feet. So, so be it. I mean, it's the way it is. But we were wondering with our homes there along that vertical, where you can see the vertical homes, and then the Lakeview Parkway is going to go there. Can we get like a concrete wall? Right now, we've been told by, hi Taggart, you came out. Taggart was wonderful. They came out, a group of them came out to our property. Do you remember? Yeah, you guys were great. I mean, they said, oh, you're just going to get the same old, whatever, that vinyl fencing. Is it required in the code that between a bunch of houses like that and this road that's people are going to go 45 miles an hour, do we get kind of more of a barrier there or not? That's my question.
That is an excellent question, and we'll get back to you on that one.
Okay.
But
fair
yes,
enough.
but thank you.
Fair enough.
Jim, no.
Well, okay.
No, it's the public hearing
That's fine,
portion.
that's fine.
So thank you very much for coming forward. If anyone else would like to come forward, we do want to hear from you. That's why we have this.
I've got a big voice, but I don't know about. Thank you. Is this the property on Geneva Road and 20th South?
It is further down. It's going to be where Lakeview Parkway comes in. Can we get your name? Because we need it to record it.
Yes. Well, you don't have my name because apparently somebody thought to not notify me. I live on Orem, no, Provo 20th North. Yes, and Geneva Road, the corner. My property is kitty corner from the property that I think you're talking about.
For the holiday oil?
What?
The holiday oil.
That red mark.
You're not talking where Geneva Road and 20th intersect
No.
in that case? Okay. Anyway, my name is Don Barr. I'm a Provo resident, but all of my children went to Orem schools. And when you get around to talking about the property that is kitty corner from me, like I say, I was not notified of this meeting, but the horse property next to me, west of me, did receive notification. I usually receive notification for Orem things because I'm smack dab up against Orem on my north line. We weren't notified, but she said she was not going to be able to be there. So I'm here just to know what's going on. Thank you. Sorry for not knowing exactly where you are.
Understandable. Thank you. Hey, would anyone else like to come forward before we close the public meeting? Public hearing? Okay, then I will close the public hearing at this time. Is there any further questions that the commission has either for the city or for the developer? Nope. Okay. Then would someone like to move for motion and discussion?
motion of discussion.
You can move for motion, so we can discuss something if you have something to
Yeah,
propose.
I guess
Or we can discuss.
what's allowed in a C2 that's not allowed in a C3? What additional
A lot.
options do they have?
There are a few, but if you look across the street to the Smiths, it has all that inline retail and things, that's a C3 zone. So it's very similar to what's allowed in the C2. The C3 has a little bit different setback on the next to residential, but there's not a lot of difference. There are some uses that aren't allowed. I would have to pull up the thing to find out, but it's a design as a retail office zone, just like the C2 zone is. But you're going to get a few more uses in the C2 versus a C3. The thing that the C3 was designed for was next to a residential property. The Pinehurst on 8th North, this one, although we do have C2 zones that are about a residential zone as well. So
Can you think of it? What you just told me is what I already know. What are the differences between C2
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay.
Have to look in the code. How does this not count as abutting residential?
Well, the CC zone, the community commercial allows a C2 zone, and that was what was general planned originally when it came into the city in 2015. Now, the intent of the city was to have this as a commercial zone.
So is CC just a term to cover anything?
That's a general
commercial?
plan designation, community commercial. And there's only a certain number of zones that allow in that. So you couldn't do a manufacturing zone. It's
Right.
designed for a commercial zone. C2 zone fits into that designation.
Right, that's what I mean. It's just a catch-all for commercial zone.
Well, it's the name of the category,
Yeah.
basically is what it is.
So, yeah, because C2 is just about anything.
Yeah, C2 is the zone,
More
CC
limited,
is the
meant to
general
be
plan.
transitional to residential.
And if you recall, a few years ago, the city council did modify the requirements in the C2, the 100-foot setback, reduced the height from 60 feet to 48 feet after the 100 feet. So there is a significant drop in the ability for someone to develop. I mean, the maximum height in any part of that, this outside of that 100 feet is 48 feet. So anything within that 100-foot swath is 35 feet. The proposal is 31 feet. So they're well within that requirement. Even if they chose to not develop the gas station and put an office building there, the maximum they're going to get on that corner is 48 feet. So you're not going to get a 60 or a 80-foot tall building. It's limited based on the zone. And the council modified that just a few years ago to reduce the height. So anywhere on State Street, for example, maximum height now is 48 feet. So it's very similar to the changes and then purposely for, to limit the heights in these zones.
I'd like to ask Mr. Washburn why the designation for C2 was sought versus C3.
C2 just gives us more options of what we can put on the site. I don't know that we're going to put a mortuary there or a crematorium, but there's more options all the way through in terms of the kind of businesses that can locate there. Again, the size of the site is going to be a limiting factor. We have agreed that should the Planning Commission deem it advisable to enter into a development agreement, limiting the uses that were mentioned at the neighborhood meeting, the car lots and mechanics. If you're concerned about building height, I think we would be willing to add that as well. This isn't a trick. We're just trying to find the best way to utilize the property and things that would attract small businesses would actually be able to service that neighborhood there and the surrounding neighborhoods to it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yes, so for me, I'm just wondering, this seems premature because we don't really have a plan, so it's hard to really limit or understand what you're coming for. I'd rather see more of a PD proposed with an actual development idea before us, so we don't end up with another olive oil debacle like we had last time where we were stuck. And there's an outcry and there just gets to the point where there was nothing the city could do about it because it had gone too far. That's why you got your gas station, because it had gone too far. So it just seems at this stage right now is the time to discuss it. Or because you're just opening the floodgate wide with a C2 zone.
So Mike, I kind of see that a little bit differently. I think one of the reasons the holiday oil thing happened is because they planned it so far in advance that all of a sudden they were locked into their plans because they planned it 3 years in advance, and then the property, there was some kind of a PD zone that was created, right? So
It's a C2 though. They came in after they'd sold the properties to the residents.
well, yeah, they rezoned it. I understand.
So yeah, the gas station was a C2 zone. It wasn't a
It
PD.
it was zoned with a development agreement though. So the reason why it was stuck with that gas station is because it was purposely done with a development agreement to limit it only to a gas station.
Right.
And he is willing, they are on some level willing to have a development agreement in place as.
So
Right, but that comes, you have to have a plan before you can really make it, or we have to go through the exhaustive list of what's in a C2 zone and say, no,
Mhm.
that's not for that area. No,
So
that's not for
can I
that area.
Hold
address
on a
that
second,
question?
Jason. I think we do want the exhaustive list to see what it is and more. But Jason?
So a couple of things. The C2 zone or a rezone request doesn't typically require a concept plan. So they provided a concept plan. They're not tied to that concept plan. It's just simply something that here's what we're thinking, 98% sure, but they're not tied to that. A development agreement or a PD zone would tie them specifically to an area. The mall is a good example of, in this instance, they're not really ready to pin down what they want to specifically do. So maybe we would design an area that this area can be this type of building and it's this height and whatever. So they're tied to a general area, but not necessarily a specific type. That would be a PD zone that I would recommend, but that requires us to continue this project. Even with a development agreement, we'd have to continue it to come up with a development agreement because now the state requires the planning commission to review development agreements, whereas before it went to council only. So I would encourage to your point is to do, if you want to go down the road of a development agreement, I would encourage us to do a PD zone and be more of a general concept plan, not tie them down to, it has to be in this exact location, but in this general area, here's where the buildings need to be. We can put the setbacks, we can put the heights, we can put the uses in that PD zone and then bring it back for a review. That gives a little bit more comfort level of what's allowed and the area that it's allowed in, but doesn't tie them to, if you don't build it exactly this way, you can't do it, which is kind of what we did with the mall. Generally, they have to build it in this location, but it doesn't tie them down to a specific thing. So that's what I would encourage is if they're comfortable doing a development agreement, a PD zone is very similar. We bring it back next time and discuss it.
I mean, the concept plan did change between the neighborhood meeting and now. So what changes by the time we actually bring a development ahead, right? That's my point.
It's a valid point.
What?
It's a valid point.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a tug of war of any kind. It's not like the holiday oil was. But any changes we make right now will just give up leverage.
Mhm.
That's it. So I think coming back with something's already set in mind, this is what we want to do with it, and this is what the zone required for it, and would be better than giving, but also it's his property rights to ask, and because we don't know what the intention is. We've been told so many times this is the intention, just to get something to pass, and then it was split into pieces, sold to multiple others, and not everybody benefited. It was a one-sided deal. So as it sits, I don't see a reason we need to do anything unless if we have a comfortable proposal. It just,
So, I mean, I think the property itself is the limiting factor, right? I mean, based on the height of the buildings and the setbacks. I mean, yeah, I guess we can ask them to come back and do a development plan, but for me, I'd be just as happy to move forward with this. I'm not as, I guess I'm not as suspicious or worried, or as concerned, because I think there are just natural limitations to what you're going to do. You're going to do what makes sense commercially. And this doesn't feel like some of the other rezones where there was a bait and switch. But you're right, we're taking a risk. I think that's what the planning commission does, is we take risks on future, on what's happening, but this doesn't seem like a huge risk.
and it's unfortunate, honestly, that we've been burned before. If we weren't, we would have a little bit more faith into the process. But the whole holiday oil, the first time it came in when I was against it completely. It ended up exactly what I predicted it to be. And there's nothing we can do about it. So this is where I'm coming from, not the fact that what we want with the property or what it looks like. I just think a clear vision that could be put in a development agreement that cannot change after the fact is better than, here you go, here's a zone, do what you want. It changes nothing to the property owner if they already know what they want. Bring it in. They're not going to lose any value. But otherwise, it's an open invitation and loss of leverage. That's all.
I mean, I'm not opposed to the strip mall. I like not strip mall, but a small retail area, small businesses. I'm concerned about the gas station. That's the part for me that, because that can go there. Whether or not they build one, who knows necessarily, unless you guys are looking into finding a partner for that right now. But
The types of businesses that can go into that strip mall are, right on top of a residential area too.
Mhm.
Are they all going to be massage parlors and tattoo shops and smoke shops? So that's what you get when you open it wide to something like a C2. They can put whatever they want because there's all sorts of things in there to do.
And although I feel the same like you, Mary, I don't feel like it's a bait and switch of any kind. It has nothing to do with the property owner or the developer or Mr. Washburn at all. In fact, would love for it to be seamless and beautiful. But we've been turned over a few times. And this is just too much freedom. That we can't do anything about it once we pass it. So develop it, have a development agreement come in. It's exactly what you want. Most likely we'll go through. But an
or
open
PD. Do a PD as well.
A PD, yeah.
Mhm.
But an open invitation like this, I think I'm completely done with that in the city forum.
Gary, if we were interested in seeing either a development agreement or trying to have presented as a PD, would we just need to make a motion to continue on this item? Or,
Well, you've got several options.
Okay.
It's pretty wide open thing. One, you're ultimately, this is a legislative item, so you're making a recommendation ultimately to the municipal council. And one recommendation would be, we just don't think the timing's right. We want to see a project back when the roads are in or we know exactly where they are and infrastructure's going in, and bring us a more concrete proposal. The timing is inappropriate for a rezone at that time. And so you could make a recommendation to the council to deny on that basis. You could make a recommendation to the council of C2 seems good in this area, we recommend approval. You could also end up making a recommendation to the council that we can see going forward, but we would prefer to have things narrowed down more. We recommend that the council deny or continue this and allow the developer to come back with a PD. And in this circumstance, probably a PD would make the most sense to me. So I think you have those several broad options to ultimately make a recommendation to the council. Now, the developer or the property owner could say, well, yeah, let's continue. I'll ask for a continuance. Or it'd be okay with a continuance to allow us to, either come back with a more specific proposal in a while, depending on when the roads start going in and things are clearly laid out, or to come back with probably a PD, I think in this situation would I think make the most sense. And I could explain that reasoning to you if you'd like, but those are broadly your options.
okay, thank you. Would you like Gary to explain PD versus development agreement in this? Are we good? You would like him to? We're good. Okay. Yes can mean both. So, okay. So those are kind of the options we're looking at. I was going to ask you what your feelings were on continuance versus.
Well, a little bit of a clarification. One of the reasons we're looking for this now is once zoning is placed, it takes years to get projects or to find customers and clients come in. Again, talk about the old UDOT property on 800 North, probably the, obviously great commercial property. It took us almost 13 years after all the zoning was in place to attract the tenants that we needed to have there. Second thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to learn now where to put in our utilities so that we don't end up having either a very awkward site plan or to end up with or end up having to cut into the street, which won't be allowed for quite a while. So those are a couple of reasons we're trying to move along here forward. I guess the next question, I asked Mr. McGinn, my understanding is the council's been really discouraging PD zones now. Are you suggesting they wouldn't?
Oh, I don't know whether they would approve a PD or a development agreement or a rezone here.
Well,
And so when we're talking about a PD zone, one of the difficulties often when you have a C2 zone and then you have a development agreement that limits things in the C2 zone. The C2 zone gives you the ability to do all of this, but you have a development agreement that limits it down to there. And that's a good thing to do. The problem is the development agreement often gets recorded on the property and nobody really sees it. The neighbors don't see it. Potential buyers often don't see it. That was one of the issues with Holiday Oil. The new buyers, after the original property owner got entitlements and had a development agreement, they flipped the property. The new buyer came in and didn't know that there was a development agreement. And that created some difficulties for everybody. And so a PD, though, is an ordinance that is, you can write a PD to do the exact same thing that a development agreement does, but now it's on record, it's part of the city code, and anybody and everybody can see it all the time. So each one has a role in place, a PD or a development agreement, and it just kind of really depends on the circumstances, just based on what I've been hearing tonight. I personally would lean towards recommending as a legal mechanism, a PD. Doesn't mean you couldn't do it with a development agreement.
I think we could put together a PD zone for you fairly rapidly. Again, I think the thing that's important here is, again, just getting the zoning in place, first of all, so that we can, consummate the plans we have to make with Provo City and also with UDOT, with the development of the road there. But I think that the uses that there seems to be concerns about are not uses we want there either. And if we could put together a PD zone, it'd probably be a fairly simple one, maybe just take the text of the C2 zone, but then add a list of permitted uses that you could review and determine if you're comfortable with that. I think I'd rather do that than have it turned down. Turn it down, we're prohibited from coming back for 6 months, and that's a lifetime in terms of development.
Absolutely. And we totally hear you about the need and trying to plan this. And that's why I would ask you if you'd be willing to continue and come back with the PD. Commissioner Hasem Sakar has a question.
What's the reason why you wouldn't consider a C3?
I'm sorry.
Reasons behind not doing it, applying for a C3.
I'm sorry, I'm really hard of hearing.
Okay, why wouldn't you consider a C3 zone?
Why did we consider a C2 zone?
Why didn't you consider
a C3 zone?
C3, it doesn't have the number of uses. Again, buildings are higher. We were looking for something that was more neighborhood oriented.
Oh, so you're willing to not make more money? You just, okay, you want a lower building height, that's all.
Well, we want to build something that's compatible with the neighborhood that's there, we're not?
That's the only reason though.
At this point, yes.
I know there are more reasons. It's the one he wants to tell us. Okay.
Yeah,
I would consider it. Yeah, you have that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you want to look at, we've got great cheat sheets now.
Yes.
Thanks to the intern.
You
You weren't here last time. We will get you one. So Yeah, and there's setback, my understanding from the conversations we've been having with C3 is that it's part of its setback. There's greater setbacks on a C3. And there's height restrictions, like lower height restrictions on a C3, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like C3 is lower height, it's a lower height anyway.
Mhm.
So it fits what you're looking for.
So,
Could I ask, could
Yeah.
we maybe continue this to the first meeting in August and we'll come back probably with a PD zone?
I think that would be an excellent choice.
If that would work for you, I think that'd be our preference. I'll tell you honestly, I think the things you're worried about aren't going to happen simply because of the configuration of the site. But if it'll give you more peace of mind, I think we're happy to do that.
I think we'll go with that. So do we need to make a motion to continue to the first meeting in August? Okay.
Let me ask my client if he's okay.
Yeah, you probably should consult. You may have a moment.
Okay, that's what we'll
Okay.
do. Thank you.
All right. Then I make a motion that we continue this item until the first meeting in August. I don't know what the date is, August. I don't have a calendar in front of me.
I'll second that motion.
August what? Oh, okay. We'll just say the first meeting in August. Anne Marie seconds it. Okay, I made the motion that we continue it to the first meeting in August. Anne Marie seconded it. Jerry? You have to say it.
Aye.
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 Hi.
Okay, we've continued this item.
Sure.
August, we'll look it up in a second. 7th. Okay. All right, thank you. Item 4.1, review and approve minutes from June 5th, 2024. It looked good to me. Anyone? Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion that the minutes of June 5th, 2024 be approved.
I second.
Okay,
Aye.
Abstain.
aye.
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 Hi.
Okay, the minutes are approved. And then Ryan, do you have anything?
Well, I think we should acknowledge it's Murray's last meeting.
It's what I was going to say
And
after
thank you for your service. And then I'll leave it up to the chair if she wants to allow you to give a speech or anything, anyone else. So thank you, Murray. Appreciate your service and time.
You're welcome.
Great job, Marie.
Yes, I too wanted to thank Mary. He came on to the planning commission at the same time, and it has been a real honor to serve with you and get to know you. And I know what you're doing next is great and wonderful, but we will miss you and your perspective. And I'm grateful we've had the opportunity to work with you. And I also want to thank Helena Kleinman for her service to the planning commission. She has resigned. And we will be getting a new planning commissioner, Rod Erickson, probably at our next meeting. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I want to
Or do you want
second
Murray?
your
Oh, yeah, second.
comments
Murray.
and tell you that you'll be greatly missed, as will Helena, but
Yeah,
she's not
thanks.
here. And I have greatly appreciated knowing you, and I hope you have a very wonderful mission.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
And I second that as well. No,
You thirded
you'll
that.
be very much missed.
Great commission. I'll miss you too.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
I second that.
okay.
Aye.
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 Hi.
Okay. The meeting is adjourned at 5:26.
I'm just